Fragments as signs of colloquialization. Tracking stylistic change in British English. We often think of language as full grammatical sentences. Subject, verb, complement, everything's there. But language in conversation doesn't always work that way. Imagine you're already in the middle of a chat, maybe in a cafe. You're reacting quickly, thinking fast. Speakers tend to shorten sentences. And then we are left with just fragments. Fragments are reduced constructions, often missing subjects, verbs, or both. But they make as much sense as complete clauses. We tend to think of fragments as a feature of speech. Casual talk, spontaneous replies, fast-paced exchanges. And it's true, that's their natural domain. But here's the surprising part. Fragments don't just live in conversation anymore. They've crossed into writing, and not just in one place, but across multiple genres. In fiction, for instance, or on the web. Of course, they thrive in the written messages of social media, but they sneak under the radar even in parliamentary records. Let's take a look at how fragments behave over time, not in speech, but in writing. Here we have the data from the British National Corpus. From the 20th to the 21st century, fragments were found to be increasing in writing. In just 2 decades, the frequency of fragments in writing has nearly doubled. It's not random. It aligns with a broader trend linguists have been tracking for some time. The colloquialization of written English, a tendency for writing to imitate the rhythms and economy of speech. Colloquialization has already been studied. Several linguistic devices have been found to be on the rise since the 17th century in written British English. Phrasal verbs, for instance. This study simply adds yet another device, fragments, to the inventory of markers of colloquialization in writing. But there are many types of writing. Having confirmed that fragments contribute to colloquialization, we now look at how they do so in each register. So, where are the biggest changes happening? Unsurprisingly, online writing leads the way. Blogs, forums, comment sections, all full of short, expressive bursts of language. Fragments thrive in these spaces, where speed and personality matter more than grammatical perfection. But it doesn't stop there. We also see a noticeable rise in fragment use in writing that's meant to be spoken, like scripts, interviews, or transcribed conversations. Even newspapers, once symbols of formal style, now include fragments in headlines, opinion pieces, and even reportage. And perhaps most surprising of all, fragments are turning up in official government documents, policy briefs, press releases, parliamentary records. These are genres once associated with rigid, impersonal style, now gradually adopting a looser, more direct tone. But if we turn to speech, where we'd expect fragments to thrive, the trend goes in the opposite direction. Over time, their frequency in spoken language actually declines. It's a paradox. Writing is getting more like speech, but speech, it seems, is getting tidier. And that's where things get interesting. Let's take a moment to compare. On one side, we have writing. Formal, structured, careful. On the other, speech. Quick, spontaneous, expressive. At least, that was before. Writing is no longer as rigid as it used to be, adopting instead linguistic devices like fragments. Meanwhile, speech, in some contexts, is doing the opposite. It's becoming more structured, more explicit, more complete. In other words, the style of these two registers, once so different, is starting to sound a lot more alike. The boundaries are blurring, and what we're witnessing is not just stylistic drift, not just colloquialization. It's register leveling. Fragments are not mistakes, they are strategic. They are how writers mimic the ease and rhythm of spontaneous conversation, how we leave out what doesn't need to be said, because context already fills the gaps. And their growing presence is not just a stylistic quirk. It's a sign that the borders between speech and writing are softening. Grammar is adapting, genres are evolving, and English, in real time, is shifting towards something more optimized, more expressive, and more human. Follow further research into how fragments enrich discourse.